So this one, I like giving you guys quite technical information about property because I like sharing the information that I've gathered. We've done well over 45 million quid's worth of property, sourced, bought, sold, let out, that we had agreed purchase price of 30 million quid. That's way over 200 deals, and I've been lucky enough to end up with a really significant portfolio, which means I'm in the Botanic Gardens in Madrid. I have committed to work 4 hours a day, but we're doing a really massive tour around Spain just to explore Spain, and oh my goodness, my cup is filling up already. I have to say I was working ridiculous before I left because I love doing what I do, and sometimes I get a little bit overexcited, and I did warn my team that after I come back after a really long break, I come back a bit like the Duracell bunny. My batteries are so charged, I'm like, yay, let's go! But I love being an entrepreneur, partly because of the freedom. Look, I'm doing 4 hours a day. I mean, that's no big deal. I'm doing it over the internet. Some of it is doing stuff like this, which is just a joy because it's fun to me to share the knowledge. I'm hanging out in Madrid with my best mate, and I'm going to explore Spain. You know, no big deal at all. So I love the freedom being an entrepreneur gives. I started in property for security. I'd had 4 professional jobs because I knew I needed to learn some skills. But prior to that, I'd previously ran a business called Grassroots Trading Company, which was just a little rinky-dink fair trade business, which I started when I was 22 because I really believe that trade should be fair right across the world, and I think that people in third world countries need to be given a fair chance to have kind of equality with the first world countries as well. So I was always an entrepreneur. You know, I ran a chain of shops and I ran that business for 7 years. So the freedom that being an entrepreneur gives you is fantastic. The location freedom that being an entrepreneur gives you is fantastic. The difficulties that being an entrepreneur gives you are the only times when I'm like, oh darn, whose blooming idea was this? Because ultimately the downside to being an entrepreneur is you have to pick up all responsibilities, whether you cause them or not, and pick them up and deal with them and move forward. So one of the traits I find about real successful entrepreneurs is they always assume responsibility. I don't mean they assume blame, because that's an entirely different thing, but they're like, okay, shit, pardon me, now how do we fix it? How do we make this thing move forward? So being an entrepreneur is not about going, darn, this happened. Oh, look how pretty that is. Isn't it lovely? But being an entrepreneur is, right, here's a situation. I wish it hadn't happened, or actually I would love to quite honestly tell you it was somebody else that caused it to happen, but I'm the one that needs to own the responsibility to make it move forward into a situation that works well for everybody involved. So the downside is you pick up all the flack. The upside is, as long as you've got the attitude that just says, right, come on, how do we fix this? You generally can fix it. I love the fact that being an entrepreneur means that I want to look at 80% delivery, 20%, it's a Pareto rule. Let's appreciate that we're all human beings and we're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, my team make mistakes. It frustrates me to heck. When I make mistakes, it frustrates me. But there's a humane understanding when you're an entrepreneur that mistakes are made, and it's actually part of the journey, it's part of the learn. You shrug your shoulders, you fix it, you move forward. Or you decide that, I don't know, you decide not to work with a person again, you can. So really what that is about choice, isn't it? You can choose who you work with, you can choose what you do with your time, which is just delicious. You can choose whether you decide to put your time into services or buying assets. And guys, I would so tell you to buy assets, it's ridiculous. Look, I'm in Madrid. My assets are in Bristol, apart from the one in Glasgow, which my son used to live in until last week, until he moved down yesterday. He moved down yesterday, but I'm keeping it because it's near my mum and dad. So you can choose where you place your work and where you place the benefit of that work to a large degree. Yeah, there's some rules. Yeah, you got to write a business plan. Yeah, you got to know where you're going. Yeah, you got to be super disciplined. Yeah, in the early days, and probably even now, I got a really strong work ethic. You got to be really strong in work, and you've got to be really passionate about what you do, because otherwise you'd be bored. And 10 years in, I'm not bored. But the benefits and the joys of being an entrepreneur so outweigh the frustrations of being an entrepreneur, which means everything's on your shoulder. I can't recommend it highly enough to you guys. So if you're teetering, thinking job entrepreneur, practice, learn the skills, understand you need to be chief exec. Look at this place, isn't it gorgeous? Isn't it lovely? You need to be chief exec, you need to be sales director, marketing director, finance director, operation director, HR director. So start thinking about all those skills and then absolutely go for it. You know, it's the best of times, the worst of times, but definitely the best of times. See you soon.